Welcome back to TESS'S Cryptids. We're getting close to the anniversary of a pretty infamous event tied to one of our favorite cryptids,
Oh, yeah.
the Mothman.
The Mothman.
And with the Silver Bridge collapse coming up on December 15th, it seems like the perfect time to revisit this West Virginia legend.
It is interesting how the Mothman, despite its name, didn't start out as this moth-like creature.
Right.
The initial sightings back in November 1966 were actually more bird-like.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine being in Point Pleasant at that time, seeing something truly strange in the sky.
Yeah, it must have been unsettling, to say the
Oh,
least.
absolutely.
Especially that first sighting on November 15th. Two young couples, the Scarberrys and the Mallettes, were driving near an old World War II munitions plant when they saw this huge, dark figure.
Right.
Linda Scarberry's account is particularly vivid. She described a 7-foot-tall man-like creature with glowing red eyes and these massive white wings.
Wow.
But what's really eerie is how she described feeling like its eyes were hypnotic.
And that unsettling feeling is something that pops up in other accounts, too.
Right.
It wasn't just about what people were seeing, but how the creature seemed to affect them emotionally.
Yeah.
Then more sightings started pouring in, some describing it as a large bird with red eyes.
Hmm.
It's tempting to think, okay, maybe it was just a misidentified bird, but then you have details like Newell Partridge's experience.
Partridge, a contractor, claimed that when he shone his flashlight at the creature, its eyes glowed like bicycle reflectors.
Yeah.
He even blamed the creature for weird things happening, like his TV buzzing and his dog disappearing.
Right. And that's where it starts to feel like something more than just a misidentified bird.
Yeah.
You have these seemingly ordinary explanations like a heron mixed with these more outlandish details.
Right.
And it really adds to the mystery.
Speaking of mixing the ordinary with the outlandish, we can't ignore the timing.
Right.
This was happening right in the middle of Batmania,
Oh, yeah.
with the Batman TV series super popular. Some believe the name Mothman was even inspired by Batman's villain Killer Moth.
Oh, wow.
It makes you wonder if pop culture had a hand in shaping the legend.
Absolutely. It's a great example of how pop culture can influence our perception of events, especially when it comes to the unexplained.
Yeah.
But let's not get ahead of ourselves. Let's go back to those early attempts to explain the Mothman.
Right, like Sheriff George Johnson's theory that it was a shite poke, which is a local term for a heron,
Right.
or Robert L. Smith, a wildlife biologist, who suggested it might have been a sandhill crane that had strayed from its migration route.
Both plausible explanations on the surface,
Yeah.
especially if you focus on the large bird descriptions. But they don't quite account for all the details, do they?
They don't.
Particularly those glowing red eyes, which became such a defining feature of the Mothman.
Right.
It's those details that make you wonder if there's something more to this story.
Sure.
And then, of course, you have the event that truly cemented the Mothman's place in West Virginia lore, the Silver Bridge collapse.
Yeah, it's impossible to talk about the Mothman without mentioning that fateful day on December 15th, 1967.
Right.
A tragedy that took 46 lives when the Silver Bridge connecting Point Pleasant to Ohio crumbled into the Ohio River.
What's fascinating is how this event, as devastating as it was, became so intertwined with the Mothman legend.
Yeah.
It wasn't just a strange creature sighted in the skies anymore. It became a potential harbinger of doom in the minds of many.
That's where John Keel's book, The Mothman Prophecies, comes in. It wasn't just a recounting of sightings. Keel dove headfirst into the paranormal activity and alleged premonitions surrounding the bridge collapse.
Oh, wow.
He described people receiving phone calls filled with strange noises, experiencing vivid dreams of the bridge falling, and even encountering men in black.
Keel's book added a whole new dimension to the legend. It really captured the public's imagination. It even got the Hollywood treatment in 2002 with the film adaptation starring Richard Gere. But Keel's claims also sparked a lot of debate. Were these premonitions genuine, or were they examples of people looking for patterns and meaning in the wake of a tragedy?
It's hard to say for sure, but the fact that these stories persist even decades later speaks to the power of the Mothman mythos.
It does.
It makes you wonder, would the Mothman have had the same impact without the Silver Bridge collapse?
It's a question worth pondering, but the tragedy definitely added a layer of gravity and mystery to the story,
For sure.
making it even more captivating and perhaps even a little frightening.
For sure. But let's not forget that with all these sightings and theories swirling around, there were plenty of people trying to make sense of it all.
Yeah.
From those who believed in the supernatural to those who sought more grounded explanations.
Exactly. You have folklorist Jan Harold Brunvand, who noticed some interesting similarities between the Mothman reports and older folklore. He pointed out parallels to creatures like the Omen of Cornwall or the Jersey Devil, suggesting that perhaps pre-existing narratives influenced how witnesses perceived the creature.
So maybe the Mothman was a modern manifestation of those age-old tales, tapping into our shared fascination with the mysterious and the unknown.
It's an intriguing possibility, but then you have someone like skeptic Joe Nickell who wasn't convinced by the supernatural explanations.
Right.
He attributed some sightings to hoaxes, like those construction workers who rather ingeniously tied flashlights to balloons to scare people.
Okay, that's actually kind of hilarious. A
Yeah.
classic prank, even if it was a little mean-spirited.
Right. It highlights the fact that not everything unexplained has to be paranormal. But Nickell also suggested that other sightings could be explained as misidentified barred owls. Those glowing eyes, so many reported, he argued it could simply be the red-eye effect from flashlights.
That makes a lot of sense,
Yeah.
especially considering how many sightings happened at night.
Yeah.
And let's not forget Benjamin Radford, who pointed out that the red eyes detail was often a second-hand account, making it less reliable.
Right.
It's like a game of telephone where details get distorted with each retelling.
Precisely. And speaking of potential misidentifications, let's circle back to the sandhill crane theory.
Okay.
Remember those reddish markings around the crane's eyes? Considering its size and the possibility of it straying from its migration route, it's still a strong contender for explaining some sightings.
And we can't leave out Daniel A. Reed, who studied migration patterns and suggested that some sightings, particularly those lacking the glowing eyes description,
Right.
could be attributed to great blue herons.
Yeah.
Herons can be quite large, so it's not totally outlandish to think someone might mistake one for something more sinister in the twilight hours.
What I find so compelling about this is how multiple explanations can coexist.
Right.
You have natural explanations like birds, the potential for hoaxes, and then the psychological aspect.
Yeah.
How our minds interpret ambiguous information, especially when we're primed to see something unusual.
It's like a multi-layered puzzle with no easy answers.
It is.
And then there's the giant owl theory, which adds another wrinkle to the story. A large, snowy owl with a 5-foot wingspan was shot in Point Pleasant around the same time as the Mothman sightings.
Oh, wow.
Some people believe it could be the source of the legend, and you can actually see this very owl on display at the Mothman Museum.
Talk about a tangible piece of the story. I'm sure seeing that owl adds to the intrigue for visitors.
Yeah.
But then you have psychologist David Gallo, who studied online Mothman sightings in Chicago. He attributed these sightings to confirmation bias, meaning people who already believe in the Mothman are more likely to interpret ambiguous sightings as the creature.
So essentially, our beliefs can influence what we see,
Right.
especially when it comes to something as elusive and mysterious as the Mothman. It's a good reminder that sometimes the scariest monsters are the ones we create in our own minds. So we've got misidentified birds, elaborate pranks, owls with impressive wingspans, and the power of suggestion. Seems like the Mothman could be a reflection of our own hopes, fears, and maybe even our desire for a good scare.
It's true. The Mothman seems to embody that human fascination with the unknown. But what's really remarkable is that the legend hasn't faded away.
Right.
In fact, it's become a part of the cultural fabric of Point Pleasant.
You're right, they've really embraced the legend, haven't they? Back in 2002, Point Pleasant launched the annual Mothman Festival. Talk about turning a potential source of fear into a community celebration.
It's a testament to how a legend can evolve and take on a life of its own.
Right.
The festival draws thousands of visitors each year who are eager to delve into the Mothman mystery.
Yeah.
You've got the iconic 12-foot-tall Mothman statue, a must-see for any visitor, and the Mothman Museum and Research Center dedicated to preserving the legend and exploring its various interpretations.
And let's not forget all the documentaries and films that keep the story alive. There are documentaries like The Mothman of Point Pleasant and The Mothman Legacy, which take a deeper dive into the history and different theories surrounding the creature. And then there are the found footage films like the Point Pleasant tapes, which add a whole new layer of creepiness to the legend.
It's fascinating how this local legend from a small town in West Virginia has managed to permeate popular culture so thoroughly.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder, what is it about the Mothman that continues to resonate with us even decades after those initial sightings?
Is it the mystery, the potential for something truly unexplained lurking out there? Or maybe it's the way the Mothman connects to our anxieties about disasters and the fragility of life?
Perhaps it's a bit of all those things. The Mothman continues to be a source of endless speculation and intrigue.
It does.
We've explored the sightings, the theories, and the cultural impact. But the question of what the Mothman truly is remains unanswered.
And maybe that's okay. Maybe the mystery is part of what makes the legend so enduring. It allows us to grapple with the unknown, to explore the boundaries of our understanding, and to confront those things that go bump in the night, both literally and figuratively. So what do you think is the Mothman? A creature of the night, a figment of our collective imagination, or something else entirely? Whatever you believe, there's no denying that the Mothman has left its mark on our culture. Keep exploring, keep questioning, and who knows, maybe you'll find your own answers in the shadows.